She's dying under the cottonwood tree, begging him to leave her, to let death take what the soldiers didn't. But he recognizes that emptiness in her eyes. He's worn it himself, knows exactly where it leads. So he refuses. He carries her broken body to his cabin, despite her screams, despite her pleas to join her murdered family. She fights him every day, choosing death over healing, wanting nothing but an end to unbearable pain. He won't let her surrender, not because he's noble. Because 3 years ago, someone refused to let him pull the trigger, because saving her might be the only redemption either of them will ever find. Ezra Mason found her at the edge of his property, where the grassland met the cottonwood grove. She was propped against a tree trunk, one hand pressed against the bloody wound in her abdomen, the other clutching a knife. Her eyes tracked him as he approached, dark, hollow, and utterly devoid of hope. "Stay back," she said in clear English, though her voice was barely a whisper. Ezra stopped 20 feet away, his hands visible. He was 43 years old, weathered by Montana sun and scarred by choices he couldn't undo. He'd learned to read desperation in a person's face, and what he saw in hers went deeper than physical pain. "You're bleeding bad," he said quietly. "Let me help." "No." The word was firm despite her weakness. "Leave me." "Can't do that." She lifted the knife slightly. "I don't want your help. I want to die here, with them." Her gaze shifted toward the horizon, toward something Ezra couldn't see but understood instinctively. Somewhere beyond those hills, people she loved were already gone. "That wound won't kill you quick," Ezra said, taking a careful step forward. "It'll be hours, painful ones." "Good." Her jaw clenched. "I deserve pain. Nobody deserves that. You know nothing about what I deserve." Her hand trembled on the knife handle. "Please, just go. Let me join my family." Ezra saw it then. The same emptiness that had stared back at him from his own reflection 3 years ago, after his wife and daughter died from scarlet fever while he was away buying cattle. The guilt that made breathing feel like theft, like he was stealing air that belonged to the dead. "I know more than you think," he said softly, "and I'm not leaving you here." He moved quickly, closing the distance before she could react. Her knife hand swung weakly and he caught her wrist, easing the blade from her grip. She fought him, but she'd lost too much blood. Tears streamed down her face as he lifted her. "No," she sobbed. "Please, no. Let me go. Let me die." "I can't," Ezra said, carrying her toward his cabin. "I'm sorry, but I can't." Her resistance faded as consciousness slipped away, but her last words were a whisper that cut deeper than any blade. "Why won't you let me be with them?" Because he knew that feeling. Because 3 years ago, someone had refused to let him pull the trigger that would have ended his own pain. Because sometimes the only redemption available was refusing to let another soul surrender to the same darkness that had almost claimed you. She woke screaming. Ezra was beside her immediately, placing a cool cloth on her forehead. They were in his cabin, a simple structure with rough-hewn walls and a stone fireplace. Dawn light filtered through the single window. She was in his bed, bandaged and cleaned, wearing one of his old shirts. Her eyes found him, and the scream died into something worse, a keening sound of pure grief. "Your wound's infected," Ezra said gently, "but I cleaned it. You'll live if you let yourself heal." "I don't want to live." Her voice was raw. "Why did you bring me here?" "Because you're not done yet." "Done?" She laughed bitterly. "They killed everyone. My husband, my daughter. She was 7 years old. They shot her while she ran to me." Her eyes were hollow. "What is there to be done?" Ezra felt the words like physical blows. A daughter. 7 years old. His own daughter had been 6 when she died. "I'm sorry," he said, and meant it with every fiber of his being. "Your sorry means nothing." She turned her face away. "Nothing means anything now." For 3 days, she refused food. Ezra had to force water between her lips to keep her from dying of dehydration. She wouldn't speak, wouldn't look at him, wouldn't acknowledge his presence except to occasionally whisper, "Let me die, please." On the fourth day, Ezra sat beside the bed and began to talk. Not to her specifically, just talking into the silence. "I had a wife named Catherine," he said, "and a daughter, Emma, 6 years old with her mother's red hair. I was gone 3 weeks buying cattle down in Wyoming. When I came back, they were both in the ground. Scarlet fever took them in 4 days. He stared at his hands. "I blame myself. Should have been here. Should have gotten a doctor faster. Should have never left. That guilt, it ate me alive. I couldn't sleep in our bed. Couldn't look at Emma's doll on the shelf. Couldn't breathe without feeling like I was betraying them by still being alive." The woman's eyes were open now, listening despite herself. "I rode out one night with my rifle," Ezra continued. "Figured I'd just end it, be with them. But my neighbor, old Thomas Whitmore, he followed me, tackled me off my horse, sat on me in the mud while I cried and fought and begged him to let me go." He paused. He said something I didn't understand then, but I do now. He said, "Their love for you didn't die with them. You dishonor that love by throwing away the life they wanted you to live." Silence filled the cabin. Then, quietly, "My name was Winona, but you can call me Maya. It's what my daughter called me. Mama." It was the first crack in the wall, small, but there. "Maya," Ezra said, "will you try some broth?" After a long moment she nodded. 2 weeks passed. Maya's wound healed, but her spirit remained fractured. She ate minimally, slept fitfully, and spent hours staring out the window at the Montana landscape, turning golden with autumn. Ezra gave her space, but stayed close, always present, always watchful. One morning he found her standing in the doorway, dressed in the clothes he'd mended for her, a bundle of supplies in her arms. "I'm leaving," she said. "Where will you go? Does it matter?" Her voice was flat. "Away from here. Away from your pity." "It's not pity." "Then what is it?" She turned to face him, and for the first time there was fire in her eyes. Anger replacing the emptiness. "Why do you care? You don't know me. I'm nothing to you. Another dead Indian would change nothing in your world." "You're wrong," Ezra said quietly. "About what?" "About being nothing, about your death changing nothing." He stepped closer. "When Thomas stopped me from killing myself, he told me something else. He said, every life saved is a chance for the world to be better than it was, that my wife and daughter would want me to be that chance." "Easy words," Maya said bitterly. "Your family died from disease. Mine were murdered. Shot down like animals while soldiers laughed. There's no redemption in that. No better world." "You're right," Ezra said, and his agreement surprised her. "There's no redemption in their deaths. But there could be redemption in your life." "How?" The word was almost a shout. "How does my living mean anything when they're gone?" "I don't know," Ezra admitted. "But I know that you living is the only thing those soldiers didn't take from you. Your breath, your heartbeat, your choice to keep going. That's yours, and they can't have it." Maya's hands shook. The bundle fell to the floor. "I'm so tired," she whispered. "So tired of hurting, of waking up and remembering they're gone, of feeling guilty every time I eat or sleep or see something beautiful because they can't." "I know," Ezra said. "I know exactly how that feels." She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth of his words in the lines of his face, the sadness that lived behind his eyes. "Does it ever stop hurting?" "No," he said honestly. "But it changes. The pain becomes something you can carry instead of something that crushes you. And one day you wake up and realize you're not just surviving anymore. You're living, and that's okay." Maya sank to the floor, and for the first time since he'd found her, she truly wept. Not the silent tears of defeat, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. Ezra sat beside her, saying nothing, just present. just refusing to let her be alone in her grief. October brought early frost to Montana. Maya had stopped talking about leaving. She helped with small tasks around the ranch, feeding chickens, mending fences, preparing meals. The work was simple, but Ezra noticed something shifting in her. She moved with more purpose. Her eyes had regained a spark of awareness. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Maya spoke. "My husband's name was Chatan. It means hawk. He could track anything, deer, elk, even mountain lion. Taught our daughter to read animal signs in the dirt." She smiled slightly, painfully. Her name was Zitkala, little bird. It was the first time she'd spoken their names aloud since Ezra found her. "Tell me about them," Ezra said, and she did. For hours she talked about Chatan's laugh, about Zitkala's curiosity, about the life they'd built before the soldiers came. Ezra listened, occasionally sharing memories of Catherine and Emma in return. The cabin filled with ghosts, but they were gentle ghosts now, honored by being remembered. "The morning they died," Maya said quietly, "Zitkala asked me to teach her to make fry bread," I said later. "I was busy with other things. There was no later." Her voice caught. "I would give anything, for one more morning, one more chance to say yes." "I told Emma I'd build her a swing when I got back from Wyoming," Ezra said. "The wood's still in my shed. I couldn't bring myself to finish it." Maya looked at him for a long moment. Then she said, "You should finish it." "She won't use it." "No, but someone else's child might someday, and Emma would want that, wouldn't she?" Ezra felt something crack open in his chest, a door he'd kept locked for 3 years. "Yes," he whispered, "she would. Chatan always said the greatest dishonor to the dead is to stop living." Maya's eyes were wet but clear. "I didn't understand that before. I thought honoring them meant joining them. But maybe—" She paused. "Maybe honoring them means carrying their love forward, living the life they wanted me to have, being the person they believed I was." "That's the hardest thing there is," Ezra said. "I know." Maya stood, walked to the window. The Montana sky was vast and dark, studded with stars. "But I think I'm ready to try. Not because the pain is gone, but because you showed me that survival is its own form of courage, and that choosing to live, really live, is how we honor those we've lost." She turned to face him. "Thank you, Ezra, for refusing to let me give up, for seeing something in me worth saving when I couldn't see it myself." "You saved yourself," Ezra said. "I just stood witness." "No," Maya said firmly. "You gave me time. Time to remember that grief and love are the same thing, that I hurt because I love them, and that love doesn't die just because they did. It stays, and maybe that's enough reason to keep going." Winter arrived early that year, but the cabin was warm. Maya stayed through the first snowfall, then through Christmas, then into the new year. She never formally decided to stay. It simply became understood between them. Two broken people who'd found unexpected solace in shared grief and mutual understanding. In February, Ezra finished Emma's swing. He built it sturdy and strong, hanging it from the old oak tree near the cabin. Maya stood beside him as he tested it, pushing the empty seat gently. "She would have loved it," Maya said. "Yes," Ezra agreed. "She would have." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the swing move in the winter wind. Then Maya said, "There's a family 3 miles down the valley. Homesteaders from Illinois. They have a daughter about Zitkala's age. I've seen them in town. Tomorrow, when the weather clears, we should invite them to visit. Let their daughter try the swing." Maya looked at him. "If that's all right with you." Ezra felt tears prick his eyes. "That would be good. That would be really good." Spring came slowly to Montana that year, but when it arrived, it brought change with it. The cabin that had been a refuge from pain became a home. Not the homes they'd lost, those were gone forever, and they both understood that. but a new home built on the foundation of shared survival and hard-won hope. Maya planted a garden where she grew herbs and vegetables. Ezra finally cleaned out Catherine's old things, donating them to families in town who needed them. They spoke often of the dead, not with the sharp pain of fresh grief, but with the bittersweet ache of love that endures. One April morning, as they worked side by side repairing the chicken coop, Maya said, "I still miss them every day." "So do I," Ezra replied. "But I'm glad I'm alive. Is that wrong?" "No," Ezra said firmly. "That's exactly right. That's what they would have wanted." Maya smiled, a real smile, small but genuine. "You know what Chatan used to say? He said life is like a river. You can't stop it from flowing. You can only choose to swim or drown." Sounds like he was a wise man. He was. And he would have liked you. She paused. "I think Zitkala would have too. She loved stories. You're good at telling them." "Catherine would have appreciated your strength," Ezra said, "and Emma would have wanted to be just like you when she grew up." They worked in companionable silence as the sun climbed higher. The past would always be part of them, the grief, the guilt, the love that refused to die. But the present was theirs too. And the future, however uncertain, held the possibility of purpose. Maya had learned what Ezra already knew, that redemption wasn't about erasing pain or forgetting the dead. It was about carrying their love forward into a life worth living. It was about choosing each morning to honor them by being fully alive. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, you found someone who understood that choice, someone who'd walked through their own darkness and emerged, scarred but standing. Someone who refused to let you surrender when surrender seemed like the only option. She'd begged for death in that cottonwood grove. But Ezra had given her something better, a reason to live. And in saving her, he'd saved himself too. That was the real redemption, not in grand gestures or dramatic transformations, but in the simple, stubborn choice to keep going, together.